All right, here we go. Lumo Systems. Thank you very much for having me. By the way, really appreciate you taking the time. This is great. Lumo Systems. We're trying to really be the future of sustainable water management, focusing on irrigation. Don't have to tell this group. Obviously, sustainable water management is very critical to our survival as a species. And right now, the UN's currently predicting a 40% shortfall in freshwater resources by 2030. So we need to figure out a way to better manage our freshwater resources to make sure we have enough. And if we do want to do that, we have to do better with irrigation. Irrigation is the biggest user of fresh water globally. I live here in California. It's about 70 to 80% of all freshwater withdrawals in this state are for irrigation. So, there's a lot of ways you can improve freshwater management, but if you do want to tackle the problem most aggressively, then you start with irrigation. Biggest user, fastest growing. And yet you kind of look around and you see a lot of systems for managing and tracking irrigation are pretty broken. There's kind of three big things to talk about out here. We're mostly focused at Lumo on specialty permanent crops. About 90% or more of these farmers in specialty permanent crops are still watering their crops manually. And that's for, this middle piece here. I'd say like the incumbent solutions right now seem too complex. They're quite expensive, unreliable, and they cobble together a lot of parts. The way automation and tracking are done are through controllers, and the controllers are connected to third-party valves, and then they're connected to third-party pressure sensors, and they're connected to third-party soil sensors, and they're connected to third-party flow meters, and you have a lot of third-party things going on. It makes it very difficult to wire things, set things up, and manage the system. So that's a big problem right now. And then on the far right there, I'd also say like just water tracking in general. It's still done in a very like analog way. Reporting is often still done by hand, and so there's a lot of broken, I'd say, dated technology right now that is being used to track and control irrigation. And our last presenter said a line there that I'm going to say again: we can't manage when we aren't measuring. So we got to get a lot better at this. We do want to improve our freshwater management, and by improving irrigation, we really need to build better systems that help manage or help us measure the water use, help us control water use, so we can be more precise and save water. So what's Lumo building? We're building a smart irrigation valve. Stressing the word valve. It's not a controller. We're actually building our own valve. It's cloud managed so that it can be connected to the cloud remotely. It does not need wires. It's solar powered as well as with a battery that will last the whole growing season, so that again there are no wires, and it's really used to help automate and track irrigation. So the valve itself has a flow meter built into it, as well as a few other sensors that allow for very precise irrigation. So if a farmer says, I want to put a gallon or 6 gallons on each vine in my crop, our valve opens up, knows how many vines are in that crop, times by 6 gallons. That's the total gallons we're going to put out. And we put out that much water. And when we put out that much water, we turn it off. So it's very, very precise. There is no need to guesstimate or, put on, okay, I think it's going to take about 10 hours to water the amount of gallons I'm hoping for. I'll round up to 11 just to make sure I get there. We're not doing that. We're really making sure that when someone wants a certain amount of water on a plant, we go get that much water on the plant. And then because we have this flow meter in there, we also have a really powerful way to track the health of the irrigation. A big problem for automation today, when we talk to farmers, they say, I don't want to automate because what happens if there's a leak down the line and I can't detect that leak? And then I, just automatically turn on the valve. No one's there to see if the network's running the way I want it to. And I'm actually just like flowing water into my field because of a break downstream. Our valves know how much water should be flowing through at an optimal rate. If the irrigation system has no breaks and it's operating the way it should be, we know the flow rate to expect, and our AI basically our machine learning will be monitoring the network at all times to figure out optimal. And so if there is a break in the line, or there is, a drip line that's been severed, or if the drip emitters are all clogged and the irrigation is kind of happening very slowly, our system is detecting that and alerting the farmer of that, so that they can actually focus on issues that are actually happening and not, send people out to every single farm to check that the irrigation is happening the way they expect. So that's kind of what our smart valve flow meter does. It's all one unit. And then, of course, to manage all that, we have our software in the back end. It's cloud managed, cloud controlled. You can access it from anywhere. It allows the farmer to not only control their irrigation, of course, but then remotely manage and access the detailed analytics as well as any alerts that are needed to be monitored in their irrigation network. The potential for this, I mean, we're not just stopping at valves. We really want to get our valves to be pretty much everywhere so that we become the digital record of water use, and then can actually help farmers do exciting things like automate water rights reporting and maybe even connect farmers so they can trade their water rights. A lot of farmers today, they have surpluses. A lot of farmers out there, they want more water than they are allotted in their water right, and they all tell me they find it very difficult to submit for a trade, to connect with other farmers who may want to buy their surpluses, and so often don't engage in water trading at all. In fact, only 1% of the water that's tradable in California is traded today, because there is such, for a few reasons, but I would say one huge reason is that there's a lack of transparency, a lack of simplicity, and I really think a digital water record would help farmers be able to engage in creative things like voluntary sharing agreements or water trading. It could really help us with optimizing the allocation of our water here across our agricultural sector. So that's the big picture. We want to sell as many valves as we can, get to as many farms as we can, digitize the water record, and then build a platform in the marketplace for trading and reporting on water. Team that's working on this from left to right. The guy on the left is me, CEO, focused on the go-to-market side and the strategy side. Had one successful exit before, built a company and sold it to Yelp. Like I said, I'm pretty much focused on go-to-market and strategy. I'm a sales support guy. That's what I do. John Hinnigan there in the middle, he's the CTO. He's the tech guy, software guy. He built and sold a company, the Telenav, and then has gone on to work at Amazon and Google in senior engineering positions. Has done some really exciting things at scale, so really excited to have him on board. And then the fellow on the right, Henry Halimi, he's our head of R&D. He's focused on the valve and hardware components that we're building. He's a very prolific water inventor, 25 water patents of devices that have sold millions of units. Last business that he has built was called Flow, which not surprisingly is a smart valve with a flow meter and a pressure sensor in it, used in the residential use case to help homeowners track water use and manage catastrophic leaks. Very similar technology to what we're applying in ag, but of course, agriculture is a very different scale of application and in all ways. So some really unique challenges that we face, but I'm excited for Henry to be around. I think he's a killer R&D leader. And yeah, those are the three of us. So together we hope to build this business and get these valves out to every farmer in the world. And we have a good advisory group to help us. We just took in our pre-seed round with Fall Line Capital leading. We have Jay Wright, who is the COO and president of Global Wine for Constellation, as our main advisor, as well as three farmers there that are really jumping in to help us. And you'll note these are like a lot of vineyards, a lot of wine and permanent. That's really what we're focused on. I love the row crop space and the pivot crop, and it's such a big industry. And to the previous presenter, congrats on focusing on that. Just such a big industry, and you're going to be very successful there. We're really focused on specialty crop, so 16 million or so acres here in America that we're really starting to target, and that's things like wine, grapes, fruit, orchards, trees, nut trees, things like that. So just to be very clear where our focus is and why this advisory team looks the way they are. And that's that. Yeah, I didn't want to take up too much time, save some time for questions, but I do thank you all again for giving me the floor. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Devon. I appreciate it. No, I think you're a great example of trying to figure out how to take a complex problem and then simplify the hardware for the individual farmer, being able to put in a battery pack that's going to last for the whole season, to have a valve that works by itself, to also take away that fear from the farmers about automating that system. But what is that actual relationship with the farmer? Are you selling a device, or do you sell a subscription? Typically, how valves the farmer are going to be using when they work with you?
Yeah, so we sell subscription model, and then we do sell our valves at a one-time hardware price. So as you can imagine, we're not really trying to make any money off the valve, pretty much sell it at cost, trying to get as many of them out there as we can. And then our goal is to sell software as a service packages that unlock features of the valve. So remote control of the valve, tracking the flow of the valve, monitoring the health and leak detection and alerts as well, and then reporting are all kind of upsell functionality that we can bring to the farmer based on their needs. And that's where we're starting today. We are still very early, we only have a few farms going, so this could all change depending on how the market demands things. But yeah, our goal is really to innovate and move away from hardware fees at all, and really just sell as irrigation as a service. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I think, and it's also, I like the bigger picture long term about thinking about how to enable farmers to have a better means of sharing water with each other, but being able to have the ability to measure the water that they have so that they know what they actually can provide or trade with other farmers, and be able to have a system for that. And it kind of goes back to your original message, which was you can't really execute on anything if you can't measure anything. So I think it's
Yeah,
gonna.
and I definitely shared that because, there's other folks on this call, and as you shared in the ecosystem, that are really focusing on other sensor types, other AIs and such that inform better irrigation schedules. We're just not, that's not what we do. We want to find partners that do that and help, build an ecosystem integrating into our valves. You guys have it. Where we really want to innovate time is in water rights tracking, water rights trading, voluntary sharing agreements. Yeah, that's kind of the alphabet we're playing on. It's like we think there'd be a very large change to how water rights are managed and how water is shared as a common resource. And the only way that we can really empower our politicians and our public and our farmers to rethink how water is shared and used and traded and so on and allocated is by having smarter infrastructure that is, to your point, doing the tracking and reporting so that we can actually manage it. Right, we aren't measuring it at all today. So yeah, that's kind of where we're hoping to innovate over time, is more in that area, and to partner more with folks to enrich the irrigation decision making through sensor integrations and so on, through partnership.
Fantastic. Well, Devin, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to speak up. Otherwise, Devin, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.